Yo, what's up, everybody? It's DfsDudes back with another edition of MLB On Deck, where we preview all the games on today's slate. I'm here with my boy Chris at DetroitBeastie on Twitter. What's up, man? You ready to break the slate down?
Absolutely. I'm excited today for some reason. I think I say that every day to begin with. So it's Thursday.
8 games on the slate. Just a quick recap last night. If you watched this video, if you watched the Core Plays video, you should have done pretty good last night. If you read Chris's Crush Spot piece, you should have done pretty well last night. I know I did really well last night. I did really well in the after hours slate as well. And one of the first things that I'll talk about is the last game we talked about on this video yesterday was the Mariners and Angels, and you loved that Mariners stack 1 through 4. They put up, I believe, 10 runs last night and won 10-7. It was a game that had a lot of offense in it. It absolutely wrecked the after hours slate because everybody was so overweight on the Padres and Chris Paddock, and Heaney was a bit owned, but I'll transition right into that. Another thing that we said right here yesterday was I really believe that the key to the success of yesterday's slate was going to be the 4 pitchers in that $7,500 to $7,000 range. And, I mean, outside of Brandon Woodruff, everybody else underperformed, and you could have hit value with each of those 4 guys. So that was a big deal to help you out. The Dodgers ran into a buzzsaw, and, like, I believe the picture I sent you, he was 0.2% owned. So it may have been like us and the people that watch this video who owned him. And the dude was lights out, right? I mean, he was everything we talked about, absolutely electric.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. As you said a moment ago, we talk and we text with each other all day, and it's nothing, we're not giving each other life lessons. We're talking about hockey coming back Saturday. We're talking about MLB. And you mentioned Christian Javier for Houston yesterday, and then you sent me a screenshot. He was like, he had 5 or 6 Ks through a few innings. And lo and behold, I forgot completely to put him in any of my lineups.
5 strikeouts through 2 innings. He ended up with 8 strikeouts, went 5 1/3, and had 39 FanDuel points at $5,500. So again, 0.2% owned, and it was like the people that watch this video who probably owned him because I don't think – I don't look around everybody else's site to see who they're recommending, but nobody knew who the hell the guy was, and it's going to be a theme with Houston. Fernando Rodney, breaking news last night. He's 40-plus years old, and he just signed with – or is about to sign with Houston. Houston, with the Verlander injury, with losing Garrett Cole and some of the other things they've got going on, they're debuting these rookie pitchers like every single night. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on. So let's hop into today's slate. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you check out the article that Chris has up right now on the website, the MLB Crush Spot. You can find that at DfsCheatSheet.com. And let's get going, man. The first game on the slate is the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles. You want to do the visiting side today, so go ahead and let's talk about the Yankees.
Well, I'd actually, if I could, putting you on the spot, I'd like to do the home team.
Home team. You want to do the home team? Yeah, hey, got no problem with that. So give me the Yankees. And a guy I mentioned yesterday that I loved in the Yankee stacks was DJ LeMahieu, and right out of the gate he hits a bomb. LeMahieu at $3,300. I think this is a very, very, very cheap price tag for a guy who went 4 for 5 last night. He's only played in 3 games, but so have the Yankees. The Yankees have run into some of unfortunately, some of the COVID stuff, but 37.4 FanDuel points last night, goes 4 for 5, a double, a bomb, 2 RBIs, scores 2 runs. And we talked about David Fletcher had a dud last night. The play was correct, but Fletcher was just another guy who's in a monster lineup hitting in the leadoff spot, and he's a super underpriced guy. Well, here's DJ LeMahieu hitting in just a stack of a lineup in the leadoff spot. LeMahieu probably has a little bit more power than a guy like David Fletcher, but when you're looking at Fletcher at $2,900, you're looking at DJ LeMahieu, who can do everything Fletcher can do, but he's got more power. Probably my favorite play, one of my favorite plays on the slate. And then the rest of it, look, we don't have to go too far into detail here with the Yankees, right? You talk about Aaron Judge, he hits a bomb last night. You talk about Stanton, you got Gleyber Torres, who is a good guy to go back to the well to today. An interesting stat, I had that game on last night. The Yankees hit 61 bombs in Baltimore last year. They were like 9-2 and hit 61 bombs. That's insane.
Wow.
So keep loading this Yankees team up. You can load them up 1 through 9. There's going to be value in this lineup at some spot, whether it comes in the form of a Mike Ford or, you know, a Luke Voit possibly. Gary Sanchez is the guy that I might want to stay away from until he kind of snaps out of it. Gary Sanchez is not seeing the ball well at all. If you watch the Yankees play and take a look at his at-bats, he's just not seeing it. He's striking out at a high clip, and he don't believe he has a hit yet this season. So he's 0 for the season.
Yeah, and you're right. And one guy I keep finding in my lineups is Mike Ford for the Yankees. He's a first baseman. He played yesterday. I don't think we see him again today, but if the off chance he plays tonight, $2,200. But on the Baltimore side of things, not too much to like here. They're massive underdogs, only like a 32% chance to win tonight, and they're at home. The only guy I find myself wanting to start, like as a one-off, is the young kid, Austin Hayes. He's going to be leading off tonight. He's $2,500. I have him projected around 12 to 13 FanDuel points, and that's fantastic for only $2,500. Talk about value. I did mention him in the crush spot as just that, a nice mix and match one-off kind of guy. So the rest of the crew, Hanser Alberto, Ronaldo Nunez, Anthony Santander, they're all in that low to mid $2,000 price range. And I'm not going to have a lot of Baltimore in my lineups, if at all, tonight.
I'm going to have Baltimore in my lineups tonight for the simple fact that I remember last year all the hype around J.A. Happ and strolls into Baltimore and gets lit up by a lot of these guys he's going to face again tonight. And Baltimore showed last night they can score some runs. They showed that last year that they can compete. They wrecked some absolute chalk pitchers on different slates last year. So I like Baltimore, but I don't like a lot of them. I just like them as a super contrarian play. And since you brought it up before we finish this game off, one thing I want to just bring up quickly with the Yankees is if you don't watch all the games, right? I have the luxury of having MLB TV and then my iPad, and I'll have like 4 games up at one time trying to watch all of them. But this is what we do, right? So my point to you is that the Yankees seem to be a team that's going to take advantage of the depth they have. Last night, we talk about Tauchman comes in the game for, I believe, for Ford, and then you had the other kid. No, Tauchman came in and played center field for Hicks. So in the 5th inning, Hicks had a couple of bats and a home run, I believe, and then Tauchman came in and took his place. And then you also had Tyler Wade. Tyler Wade, I believe, came in that game as well last night as well. So the Yankees have a lot of depth, and I think that's just something to caution. Like when you're loading the Yankees value up, you don't have to get a lot out of value ever. You just need, a double and an RBI or something to make value for a guy like Wade who's 2,200. But be mindful that you're probably safer playing the big names when it comes to the Yankees, like Aaron Judge and Stanton, the guys are going to play 9 innings. We'll move on, and we'll talk about the next game on the slate, and that's Boston and the Mets. Boston, not a popular team yesterday, but did come away with the win and did put up 6 runs.
Absolutely. So my side of things, I love, again, we're coming up on a week straight of baseball every day, and there's certain teams and certain players that it's like a trend that keep popping up in the cheat sheet optimizer or in your own statistics when you sit down and get into building your teams. And Jeff McNeil is that guy. Just looking at the screen in front of you here with us today, McNeil he's $2,900. His price has stayed pretty reasonable. Looking to do, 12, 13 points, almost 14 points for $2,900. It's I think it's a can't miss situation, and he takes up that it's a third base. I would think third base and shortstop, those are premium positions, especially shortstop. And third base isn't as deep as everybody thinks it is. When we get in terms of seasonal stuff or even DFS stuff, you have those really high priced guys at third base, and I normally spend down at third base so I can spend up in other positions like first base and shortstop. So for me tonight, Jeff McNeil is going to be in all my lineups across the board at third base for $2,900. Looks like Ahmed Rosario, the young Dynamo shortstop, he's going to be leading off, only $2,500. Massive upside there. He's going to get on. He's going to steal bases. And if you're looking at the cheat sheet optimizer and all their analytics, they have him. Might as well round up to 20 points tonight for a very low price and only $2,500. And then the rest of the characters, they got Conforto, Nemo, Ramos at catcher, and then a guy who's a wild card, Cespedes. Lineups aren't 100% out yet, but if you go on like FanDuel or DraftKings, it'll give you the projected and where he's going to bat in the lineup. Cespedes is only $2,600, and he's only going to bring your team one thing, and that's home runs. I mean, he's not a high average guy anymore. He's certainly not going to steal bases anymore. So for the Mets side of things tonight, I like the 1-2 guys, Ahmed Rosario, and 1 and 3 guys, Ahmed Rosario, and then Jeff McNeil at third tonight.
So I like the lineup for Boston just came out, and I like the little switch that they've made here with Peraza leading off and then moving Pilar from, I believe, where he was hitting 5th or 6th. Now Pilar's in the 2-hole. Pilar is at 2,900, I think one of the best value plays or mid-tier plays on the slate. This guy's been red hot since coming over. He's had a hit in each of the 4 games they've played. He's had 3 hits in 2 of the 4 games they've played. He's already got a bomb. He's had an RBI in every game but last night. He scored a run in every game, and his lowest output is 6.2 so far this season. Is he in line for a dud? Maybe, but the one thing I know about Pilar is, being a Giants fan, it's such a sore spot with Giants fans that they did not re-sign this guy. He's a hell of a baseball player. $2,900 is too cheap for a guy hitting in that 2-hole who can score runs, get on base, hit for power, hit for extra base hits. I mean, he can really do it all. So through the first 2 games, my 2 favorite one-offs I'm going to tell you so far are DJ LeMahieu and Kevin Pillar hitting at the top of the lineups respectively. Outside of that, JD Martinez is confirmed now in the 3 spot. It's only a matter of time before this guy just gets red hot. He did have a pretty productive night last night, but only the 1 hit. He's only got 3 hits so far this season. A popular term in fantasy is regression. You're not seeing regression out of JD Martinez. You're seeing a slow start. He's going to catch fire. The numbers will even themselves out. And he's due for a monster game with already putting up 134.9 point game. And then he's only put up 18.4 points in each of their following games. So tonight, looking at Steven Matz, I like the right-handed bats here. Matz, a lot to prove, in my opinion, coming off elbow problems, etc. Last season. Matz has been really good, but I think this is a good opportunity to load up Boston tonight against Steven Matz, and I would start that with that 2-man stack of Pilar and JD Martinez. We'll keep it moving, and we'll go Cleveland and Minnesota. Look, the Cleveland side of things, I think that you would agree with me that Cleveland's been a little bit surprising with the production they've put up. You take a look and kind of compare last year to this year, and the one guy it starts with, in my opinion, and it started with last year, is Jose Ramirez. And Jose Ramirez last year, it was like he just tried way too hard and found himself in a slump. He's playing completely different this year. I mean, 3 hits again yesterday. An extra base hit the day before against the White Sox. He had a 53.8 double dong performance against Kansas City on July 26th. So at $3,800, it is a pay-up spot, but this guy's been extremely hot. And facing Jose Berrios, I'll go back to last year. One of the reasons I really liked Jose Berrios on opening day last year against Cleveland was because they didn't have Lindor or Ramirez in their lineup. They do. Berrios is a really solid pitcher. I don't know that Ramirez is the guy. The Cleveland's a stack you want to go with here, but Ramirez and Lindor is a 2-man stack. I like that. Outside of that, Cleveland's not a team that I think you want to stack today, but I definitely think Ramirez is a guy you can get as a one-off and maybe a mini stack with him and Lindor.
Yeah, I like that call. And then if we transition to the Minnesota side of things, I love doing these videos now with you, and you have the interactiveness of the screen in front of you and the whole cheat sheet thing in front of you. So while I'm chatting, if you could bring up the Minnesota, the game script for Cleveland at Minnesota, like you just did. Thank you. Look at the first 3 or 4 guys here. Max Kepler, very low. What would you say is a high K rate? 25%, 20% or higher? would be.
Yeah, you got to be. I mean, 24.5 to me is kind of where I'm looking at. Like if you're at 24.5 and above, and then what I do is I look at the overall K rate, and then I want to know against both sides of the plate, right? So if there's a big discrepancy in K rate, again, if it's a right-handed pitcher and he's dominating righties, but there's no left-handed K rate there, then I want to make sure that lineup before it confirms is not stacked with lefties before I decide to roll that pitcher out. So kind of a 3-step process for me with K rate.
No doubt. And the only reason I ask you that, because looking on the screen in front of us, Kepler so far this season, mind you, all these guys are going to have modest batting order or averages right now, because there's only been 15, 20 ABs for these guys. But Kepler, he keeps it low, 18.4%. And even Mitch Garver, he's on the cusp, 24.9. You can round up to 25%. But Kepler leading off in this lineup, he's only $3,000. You can expect minimal 10 to 12 fantasy points on FanDuel tonight. And then if you look at Mitch Garver, he's even cheaper at $2,500. And especially Max Kepler, he's a threat to hit a leadoff bomb every night. If not, he gets on base. You got Josh Donaldson, Jorge Polanco, and then Nelson Cruz, who is just not aging. And he's had a monster game already. I have a feeling he's in for another monster game here soon. Is it tonight? I'm not sure. Eddie Rosario. I mean, as an AL Central guy and a Tigers fan, I love the Twins and what they've done with this lineup. And then not to mention Luis Arizia, sits at the bottom of the order, but he's an on-base machine. I've said it. Say that.
I lost you for a second, so I didn't hear how you finished that off.
What happened was, so I set alarms on my phone for every lock on FanDuel. So the early only locks at 4:05. So I forgot to turn my alarm off while we were doing the broadcast. So I take it serious. I set alarms for everything, especially when it comes to FanDuel.
Hey, if you're doing what we're doing on a daily basis, you can't make. That's like the most elementary piece, right? You can't miss the lock. So we'll move on. Kansas City's at Detroit, another team that I think has been pretty surprising so far this season, and maybe it's just who they've played, but Kansas City's put runs up, and it seems like this series has gone on for the entirety of the season so far. I mean, how many games is Kansas City and Detroit going to play here before they play somebody else, right? So with Kansas City, I mean, it's the same cast of characters. I talked yesterday about Salvador Perez. I think is going to be in that hunt for comeback player of the year. Jorge Soler has a ton of power in this lineup. Maikel Franco, a ton of power in this lineup. Alex Gordon, the veteran. Mondesi's a guy who can get on base. And Whit Merrifield, just a really good hitter at the top of this lineup. So Ryan O'Hearn is a good guy in a left-on-right matchup situation that can hit you a bomb as well. So I don't not like Kansas City. I don't love Kansas City. I just think that if you're max entering today, that you're going to want to get Kansas City stacks and stack this game up as a whole. That would be the first thing I'll say about it. And the second thing, I think there's one-off pieces here or mini stacks that you can put together if you're playing single entries or playing a bunch of different 100-man leagues or 10-man leagues or 3-man leagues like you get into. So I don't like Kansas City. I guess what I'm saying to you is they're not my favorite stack of the day, but from an exposure standpoint, you're going to need some type of exposure to this game, be it a mini game stack, a full game stack, or just playing one-offs. But if you're playing max enters, you're definitely going to want to get a 4-man stack and a full-on game stack with both these teams.
So here's my thing. You mentioned elementary when we started the KC at Detroit, and I rarely hear people talk about the over-unders or the run implied totals on a per team basis. Is that because it's elementary? We should already know that. But no,
I would tell you that for purposes of DFS and my 6 years of doing DFS, that the easiest way to determine the chalk is to go and look at the implied run totals, because like that seems to be like the staple of everybody's first stop for research is, let me just go find out who the highest implied run totals are. Let me find out who the best pitcher is, and let me build my lineups around that. So that's kind of like, I wouldn't say elementary, but it's like research for dummies, if you will, right? Like, let me just go. I won't go any deeper into it to do anything else. Let me just go find who are the highest implied run totals. That's why yesterday, I talked about a couple of teams like the Angels. I talked about a couple of teams that were like 6th and 7th on the implied run total list. When you look at it, the funny thing is you can have, let's say you take the top 8 implied run totals for the day, right? And let's say that Colorado's on the slate. Coors Field is on the slate. Well, those two teams by default are going to have the 2 highest implied run totals, and people are going to try and squeeze those in their lineups. Okay, so now you look at like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, there may be like a 0.2 difference between. It may be like 4.8 for the third place team and like 4.5 or 4.6 for the 8th place team in terms of implied run total, and people won't even look that far down. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about like 2.2 points here in implied run total, and people will just completely fade it. So I wouldn't say elementary, but it is a way where you can kind of find out where the chalk's going to be.
Well, the only reason I mentioned this, and so I guess your words, I come from the fantasy baseball for dummies. All love, all kidding. But if you look at the pitchers in this game, Ivan Nova for Detroit, and then the young kid, a very nice prospect who I personally favor, Brady Singer tonight. They're pitching, and if you look at the over-under for Kansas City at Detroit, it sits at 10. That's the second, aside from New York at Baltimore, that's the second highest over-under. Kansas City is at like 5.2 runs, while Detroit is at 4.6. Now, you said you're going to have exposure to Kansas City. I love a full-blown Kansas City stack today because they're facing Ivan Nova downtown today. Guy loves to do 2 things. He loves to walk batters, and he loves to give up home runs. I came upon that fact this morning when I was doing this. But in turn, on the Tiger side of things, and you'll know this, and anybody else that's watching this or will watch this or comment on it, that with a rookie pitcher that nobody has ever seen or faced before, it can go one of 2 ways. He's going to have electric stuff, they don't see it, or they're absolutely going to tee off on him. Or it's going to be a little bit of a combination of both. Well, tonight for me and the Tigers, they are still super cheap. They keep putting up runs, especially since KC's been in town. So I wouldn't hate a full-blown 4-man Tiger stack. And I'm talking like maybe skip the leadoff guy, which is Harold Castro, and go right to Scope, Cabrera, Crone, maybe skip Christian Stewart and get Maben in your lineups tonight. And for why Jacoby Jones is batting 9th, he's absolutely been nuts. Not nuts, but he's been fantastic. Every time I look around, he's hit a home run. So why he's batting 9th, I don't know. I'm not the GM. I'm not Ron Gardenhire, but I love maybe a one-off of Jacoby Jones and then just, mix and match your Tigers, but a stack in a way, skipping a batter here and there, like I said, if that makes any sense at all, because the wheels are turning and I'm speaking as I'm thinking.
So I was gonna wait until we did our core plays video to talk about Singer, but let me just say this, right? I'll as much as I like the kid in Houston last night, based off the peripherals, let's just take a quick look at Singer. His first start in the majors, he struck out 7. He gave up 2 earned runs, but he put up 30 fantasy points in 5 innings pitched. Okay, let's look at his pitch mix. First of all, the kid last night, and why this is how daily fantasy works sometimes, and I don't have my notes from last night in front of me, but it's like information in for that day, and then the slate locks and the information's gone. So I can't think. Is it Christian Javier? Is that his name?
Yes. Yeah.
So as much as I liked him, we talked about his pitch mix on the videos yesterday. Singer, average fastball velocity at 94.2 miles per hour. He follows it up with a changeup at 88.5 and then does you extremely dirty with his ground ball strikeout pitch, the slider at 83.9% of the time. And if you look at the pitch mix, he's a 50% fastball guy and a 47.5% slider guy. So he's really a 2-pitch guy who's going to, the first time through this lineup, probably going to try to set the slider up by really locating the fastball. So pitchers like that, if this guy can locate the fastball down and away and bring it up and in early and locate it, he could have another high upside night. So Singer, one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. Excuse me. I was going to wait and break him down when we got to the core plays, but I do want to throw that out there since you brought him up. Absolutely love this kid. What a prospect. So are we moving on? We're moving on.
Sure, absolutely.
Excuse me. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. I screwed up yesterday on this one and said I wasn't big on Atlanta because I wanted Atlanta to get home and didn't even realize they were at home yesterday. And I missed the boat on Atlanta. I would have had a ton of exposure to Atlanta if I would have just done the most elementary thing in the world and looked to see that it was in Atlanta. I took for granted that it was a home and home and just tried to streamline that as they were in Tampa Bay the night before and thought they were just in Tampa Bay again. So that's my huge mistake I made. But on the Tampa Bay side of things, I mean, I think you said it yesterday best. Tampa Bay is going to be a consistent team that's going to consistently be competitive night in and night out. They can put the big inning up. They can put the crooked number up. You start that, obviously, with a guy like Yandy Diaz, Hunter Renfroe, a great acquisition at the end of last year, picking him up. They are minus Tommy Pham in the middle of that lineup, but they've still put up a bunch of runs. Jose Martinez coming over from the Cardinals. That guy was a huge prospect when he was in St. Louis. Didn't pan out the way that they wanted to, but these are guys I think you can all look at. And then Yoshitomo, I can't say his last name, Sugato or Suga. I have no idea. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to.
Sounds good to me.
Steph's got one on me. So if Steph's watching this, he can give me shit about not being able to pronounce the name for once. But Kevin Kiermaier, another guy, Willie Adames, another guy, Mike Zunino. These guys can all put up runs. I just don't like the matchup today for them. I don't like the matchup at all. So for me, it's more of a one-off situation. I might look for a guy like Martinez, Renfroe, or Margot as a one-off play. But other than that, I'm moving on from Tampa Bay.
So when it comes to Atlanta, I don't know if you remember talking about this. It might have even been Monday or Tuesday. You said, I think you asked me, you said, is Atlanta the best, worst team in baseball right now? Because they could not stop striking out. And finally they broke through last night. But I want to draw everybody's attention to their starting shortstop, Dansby Swanson here. The guy he's almost batting 400. His average sits at 391 right now. 2 bombs, 8 home runs. He's averaging about 16.8 fantasy points a game right now on FanDuel, and he's only $3,000. Now, excuse me, if you look at some of the other starting shortstops, on the slate today, he's not even the most expensive guy, but he brings more upside. And for some reason, they got him down. That lineup is so stacked. They got him sitting at like 6 in the order, right? And I'll be honest with you. I've always been honest with everybody who reads the content or reaches out to us. Dansby Swanson wasn't even on my radar. It was one of our other, seasonal baseball guys that writes for us, Ben Anderson. So shout out to him. He goes, why don't you, after reading the Crush Spot, he says, why don't you look at Dansby Swanson today? And I said, I will. And lo and behold, 391 batting average for $3,000 it's fantastic. So again, with Atlanta, what are you going to do? We know what to expect from Acuna and that young kid, Albies. Freddie Freeman is a average guy. Freddie Freeman is like Anthony Rizzo. Like, they can do no wrong. You can set your watch by their seasonal stats or on a per game basis. So to me, in this game, the one guy, given the main slate, I like a lot more stacks than other teams, but gun to my head in a pinch at shortstop, I'm going Dansby today.
You can't get me ever to build lineups with Atlanta and stack Atlanta without including Dansby Swanson. And I look, I get how good Ronald Acuna is. I get Albies is a really good young guy. Freddie Freeman, to me, is their best player still. You add Ozuna, you pick up Duvall, you have the other prospect in the hype with Austin Riley. And what happened, in my opinion, is Dansby Swanson, he had the wrist injury, and then he came back from that last season. I think it was like about this time last year when Swanson kind of started getting going again. But if you watch Atlanta Braves baseball, you watch this kid play defense, you watch what he does on the base pass, the at-bats he puts together. I mean, I'm sure people will give me shit for this, but I think Dansby Swanson is their best young player. I think he's a better young player and more of a 5-tool player than Acuna or Albies or even Austin Riley are. I think Swanson's the future star of the franchise. And it could be a reason why they gave so much money early to Acuna and Albies and why people think those guys settled for it. I mean, but that's maybe a topic for a different conversation. But so I couldn't agree with you more. Swanson's a stud, man. Period, point blank, end of story.
And what I don't like is, let's imagine Yasiel Puig was on this roster. Obviously, we know he wasn't able to join them because of a positive COVID test, but a guy like him would further just bury Swanson in the lineup, on a night-to-night basis, which I think is criminal. So given the high-end talent on this team, you got Adam. Look at what we got in front of us: Acuna, Albies, Freeman, Ozuna, and then you have Duvall there. If I was running that, the manager, I would put Swanson at 5th, maybe even 2nd if I could. But then
that's where he should be, is 2nd. I agree.
Someone's always going to have something. Well, where do you put Albies at? I don't know, but Swanson, he was the number 1 overall pick a few years ago. He started slow. Maybe he's finally catching he's catching on, and we're going to see something special there. I've hung on to him in all my seasonal formats. I know this is a DFS website and a DFS podcast video, but Swanson's where it's at for me on this team. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, before we wrap it up with Atlanta, it wasn't necessarily the slow start so much as he had a wrist injury, and I mean, it was a really serious wrist injury, right? So I mean, he's a stud. No other way to say it. Seattle and the Angels. This is a game. I think there'll be some more ownership on this game tonight, just because it put up 17 runs last night. And then from the pitching side of things, again with Seattle, Marco Gonzalez, and with the Angels, it's Dylan Bundy. Dylan Bundy's a guy that I'm going to talk about on the Core Plays video. Not to say you can't talk about him now, but Dylan Bundy's a very intriguing play tonight and against the Seattle team, especially coming off the start he had against Oakland. And Dylan Bundy's been a guy that when you see the name Dylan Bundy, and this is why I think there'll be some ownership on Seattle tonight, when people in the daily fantasy community see the name Dylan Bundy, they think gas can, let me stack against him. And look, you've been on, and I've said this over and over again, nobody that I know knows the prospects and the up-and-comers and the guys that are maybe a couple years from being in the majors better than you do. And you've nailed Seattle from going all the way back to, our divisional previews. And a guy you've talked about is Kyle Lewis, exciting young player. You've also talked about Evan White, the old man Kyle Seager. I think that's what you called him yesterday. He's still there. A nice game for him last night. Vogelbach, if he's going to be in the lineup, it's a guy you can look at. Malik Smith, another guy, if he's in the lineup, you can look at. D. Gordon, if he's in the lineup, you can look at. Seattle has some nice little pieces to be competitive. I would put Seattle, after watching them over the last week, I think I would put Seattle maybe in the Kansas City Royals range, right? Competitive, pesky team. There's in a little bit of a tough – I think that the West is a little tougher than the Central is as far as depth goes, but – I like this team tonight because Dylan Bundy's the wild card. Like I said, I'll talk about him on our Core Plays video later, but 1 through 4, you can maybe even go, with depending on how this lineup confirms. But if JP, let's say the bottom of this is like JP Crawford, Malik Smith, D. Gordon, I think that's a very contrarian stack as well. You hope the top of the lineup drives those guys in. D. Gordon gets on base, and it's like he's going. Right, and he can easily get you 15 points. Malik Smith, the same type of player, can easily get you 15 points just by walking. They can steal second, can steal third, and then get driven in. So I like Seattle tonight because I think they're a wild card stack kind of against Dylan Bundy.
Another day, another Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim stack. I talked in the crush spot. I sent a picture and I had the whole game, not game script, but the whole schedule, and I circled 4 teams: Yankees, Mets, Kansas City, and the Angels tonight. If you look at their over-under, it sits at 9. They have the Angels projected to put up a little bit over 5 runs. So to me, that means the heart of the order: Fletcher, Trout, Rendon, and then like a cheaper guy like Tommy La Stella in there. These are all guys that I've ridden, and I've died with these guys for even last season in both seasonal and DFS formats. So for me tonight, it's real simple. I said it yesterday, and it's going to hold true the rest of the season. Whoever is leading off for the Angels, I want in my lineup. And I don't care if it's the only Angel I have. Fletcher looks like he's going to be leading off tonight. He's $3,000, probably going to get you 10 to 12 points because you got Mike Trout and you got Rendon back in the lineup full time now, batting third.
I like it. Moving on, the Dodgers face the left-handed Robbie Ray in Arizona. And look, the Dodgers are going to be a team that every single night, if you're playing daily fantasy sports, you can play a one-off, a mini stack, or a full-blown four-man stack, and multiple variations of that one-off mini stack and four-man stack. We don't have to talk at length here about the Dodgers. They've got plenty of power. Last season, they proved that they had gotten over the left-on-left matchups when guys like Max Muncy and Cody Bellinger had really strong years against left-handed pitching. Corey Seager's back in the mix. He has no problem hitting left-handed pitching. Robbie Ray, I just feel like Robbie Ray's window is past, man. I mean, yeah, he had some strikeouts, but the thing with Robbie Ray to look at when Robbie Ray pitches, his last start against the Padres, 3 2/3. He walks 3 guys. He gives up 3 earned runs, but he strikes out 7 and gave you 23 fantasy points. I'm not recommending Robbie Ray. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that peripherally, it looks like Robbie Ray is still a good pitcher and maybe puts you on the fringe with the Dodgers. Like, they're facing Robbie Ray. They got a lot of left-handed bats, left-handed pitcher. Maybe I'll fade it. The problem with Robbie Ray over the last season and a half is pitch count. He's just throwing a ton of pitches, and anytime you get a strikeout pitcher, you're going to talk about that battle of pitch count. And the one thing that I look at when it comes to a pitcher transitioning from their window being open to that window starting to close as far as dominance goes is, can they put guys away? And when guys start fouling off your strikeout pitch or your put away pitch and make you throw more pitches and then make you nibble the zone a little bit more, trying to get you guys to chase, your window's closing. And that's what I see with Robbie Ray. So the Dodgers are a green light for me tonight.
Well said with Robbie Ray. And if you look at the Arizona side of things, another team that I haven't really paid too much attention to them from a DFS standpoint, because we're always chasing the higher upside people or the higher over-unders. In the over-under in in Arizona tonight with the Dodgers is at 9.5. And I'm looking over the Arizona roster as I sit here, and the only 2 pieces I really like tonight are the Marte brothers, Ketel Marte leading off and Starling Marte batting third. So I don't really have much to say when it comes to Arizona. Marte's $3,300. Starling Marte is a little bit more expensive. He's $3,700. But in my eyes, you know what you're going to get with them, and it's money well spent in terms of fictitious DFS dollars.
And here I'll give you my first leverage play of the night. It would be the Arizona Diamondbacks against Stripling. Because I'm not saying Stripling's not a great play. I think he's a really good play tonight in the desert, only $8,400. But Ross Stripling, we weren't really sure we were going to get with Stripling because of the fact he closed the season last year as an opener. We didn't know what was going on with the rotation, etc. And he comes out against the Giants, 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, 49 fantasy points, a win, a quality start. People will chase points. And you're going to see, when you look at the overall pitching slate tonight, you're going to see Ross Stripling at 8,400 against the Diamondbacks. He's going to get run support, and people are going to chase the fantasy points. I don't mind the leverage play with a full-blown stack with Arizona, and I would center it around the top 4 guys in that lineup and maybe even kind of tinker in Christian Walker and Cole Calhoun. The funny thing here about Arizona is that Jake Lamb is hitting all the way at the bottom of this lineup, and the price on Jake Lamb is not what we're used to seeing. Jake Lamb at $2,200 is an unbelievable right-on-left matchup as a one-off play. So I don't mind it as a leverage play in multi-entry tournament fields. If you're going to get some exposure to Arizona, I think it's a really good way to get leverage in the field with, I think, a lot of popularity around Robbie Ray. Moving on, San Diego is in San Francisco. And you have to like all the pieces of this San Diego ball club and all the, starting with Fernando Tatis Jr., the one guy I texted you last night. I said, damn, the one guy that I was not worried about going yard, and Trent Grisham hits a 3-run jack and just ruins Cueto's night. So I think your text back was perfect. I have him in all my lineups. So, Tatis, Grisham, Machado, Tommy Pham, Eric Hosmer. It's a really deep 1 through 6 when you get into Profar and Will Myers as well. So San Diego, a really deep lineup. As far as, the pitching matchup and who they're facing, Kevin Gausman has never been a star pitcher in baseball. He's pitching in a bigger ballpark. But like I've said a couple of times, They now have the bullpens in right center and left center field in San Francisco, and it's a little bit smaller ballpark, gap to gap. So I like San Diego a lot. They're one of my top 8 stacks tonight. If you tune into the deep dive, when I give you my top 8 stacks, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say my top 8 stacks. So I'm all in on San Diego again tonight. They're also a green light for me.
In my excuse me, I've been building after hours rosters, and Dilson Lamet is my starting pitcher in my after hours lineups, and it's not even close. And when you look at the San Francisco side of things, the most expensive player on their roster is Mike Yaz, and he leads off, and he's $2,600. And the next expensive, $2,300, $2,200, $2,100, $2,000 cheap. I mean, not to be rude, these are professional ball players, but a lot of these guys towards the end of their roster, Joe McCarthy, Tyler Heineman, whatever, Brandon Crawford, Joe McCarthy, Marcel Dubois. No, the casual baseball fan and the casual DFS guy, who are these guys? And they're facing a San Diego team with superstars like Tatis, Machado, Will Myers, the professional ball player, like we always say. So when you get to the San Francisco side of things, not too much to be excited about. The only positive I could pluck from this is you could start, the heart of their order for like $6,000. But why? What's the point? It's not going to yield you much. So I'm fully staying away from San Francisco tonight, and it's a shame.
Fully staying away, and it's a shame. I mean, it is what it is. They're not going to be. I mean, I think that they'll be in games like last night. They walked it off last night. I think that they'll be in games. They'll compete. They've got prospects. They've got, like you said, professional ball players. Anything can happen on any given night, but it's not a team. They're not a cornerstone team in Major League Baseball by any stretch of the imagination. So that's where we're at as far as the slate goes. Make sure you tune back in when we bring RotoBeast back into the mix for our core plays video. He'll give you his cash game core. Chris will give you his 5 guys to crush, and I'll give you my top stacks of the day. Until then, be cool. Keep it cashing, guys. Peace out.